Okay, I got to switch to Christy's first question, and I know you've written in more, Christy. So she says, my daughter has many visuals and schedule and aids, but she continues to refuse to use them. If they are working for her, she seems to get bothered that it is working and that her code has been cracked. So she will have a behavior that could have been avoided if she had stuck to the schedule, but she seems to be looking for reasons to be miserable and can't stand to function without the misery. So being organized and regulated seems to make her dysregulated, if that makes sense. I just don't know what to do about it. We've tried ABA, cognitive behavioral therapy, and DBT. I'm not sure I know what that is.
I love DBT.
Okay, and she says she's 15 and this problem has existed from the start. There is more information if you need it, Ev, but that's
yeah, I see her next one, which says she did 2 residential settings. She does well in the structured, the rules are the rules, and no outside stressors are added, but she always graduates in 30 days. She can tell you the rules she's does awful at the point of performance. She unwinds too quick and her negative self-talk takes over too quick in the real world. It's very hard to watch and work through. So there's a couple of different things going on. You are somewhat correct in the sense that dysregulating is more of her norm, because probably for the 15 years, some of it's habit. It's familiar. She knows what to expect. She knows what's going to happen when she has a meltdown. And like all of us, familiarity sometimes breeds, it makes you do things the same thing more often just because this is what's going to happen. It's familiar. Yeah. And you know the result that she's going to end up, in this place or in her room or, there's some reinforcers that are there because it is familiar. When she does start to learn and to abide by the rules and everything, my guess is those visual schedules and things aren't fulfilling what she really needs. It probably gets her a certain amount of reinforcement that might get her like initially moving, but the rest she has other needs just like every human being, and they change. And if she can't communicate what she's actually thinking or wanting or needing or is into, she's going to continue not to work because it's very limiting. It's like if we told you, hey, here are these 20 sentences that you can say, and this is all you can say. And maybe in a certain context, those 20 sentences work great. But then suddenly the context moves or needs change, and none of those things fit anymore. And it becomes and our kids are all or nothing. So then it's useless. And I'm just going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And our kids are all or none, right? These kids on the spectrum. So, what it sounds like is, these programs that are 30 days, it manages the behaviors, but it doesn't teach her anything new. And that's the part that she needs. She needs more teaching, and that's why I was saying I like actually dialectical behavior therapy, because dialectical behavior therapy was originally created for borderline suicidal patients. And it has a whole psychoeducational component, creating goals, new learning targets. And we call it a cousin of ABA.
Okay.
The first time I saw DBT, it was from the creator of it. And I had a psychologist at CARD drag me to it. It was a CE event. And I was like, I don't want to go. And she was like, you have to come with me. This is all that you do. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she dragged me kicking and screaming. And I stood there and I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I do. Like the only difference is that with the ASD individual, you're not going to assume they have perspective taking.
Okay.
So you still have to teach a lot of social skills, like social understanding, as opposed to DBT. It's used with people who are pretty neurotypical, but what I've discovered is they tend to be more concrete thinkers.
Okay.
So they may not meet the criteria for ASD, but they tend to be very black and white individuals. They want things to go a certain way. They identify information a certain way. There a lot of times are social skills missing. So that psychoeducational component about understanding somebody else's perspective. They might know the other person has that perspective, but they don't go like that next step to really figure out why that perspective is important. So it's that's why they call it a cousin of ABA, because it does have that challenging behavior component plus the skill acquisition component. There's things to learn still. And your daughter's kind of like right in between there. She has ASD, so she's right on that line, but she's not quite getting everything that the neurotypical person has too. She probably understands some things. There's going to be holes, and there's going to be some significant holes if she has that ASD diagnosis. And figuring out what those holes are and teaching her replacement behaviors and teaching her understanding how things work. This is the kid typically that I go very factual with. If there's a factual way to identify this, I try to go factual first, because sometimes when it works, it's amazing. Like they're like, oh, that's how it works. Even how the idea of being sick. I taught a kid how to read his blood work
Mm.
because he would start to look it up on the internet, and at the end of every internet search on something, you
Yeah.
die.
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know like and we actually had to ban him from the internet, and then just like give him like, here's the information you need to know. This is how your body works. This is how you know you don't have a brain tumor because you had a headache, because he
Right.
would always jump to like the most extreme. And but if I stayed very you start very factual, and then you figure out what don't you understand. Like for a lot of these kids, they don't have that gray. They think that if you say you're okay, good, fine means that you're perfect. So they hear people use it, and they kind of understand that it's a good thing. But when they use it themselves, all the four of those things are equal. They don't realize that you can really love something sometimes, but if you eat pizza 5 days in a row, you might not want it today. You can still love it, but you do not want it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like just understanding that is like, it's very hard for our kids on the spectrum. So, understanding that there is a difference between, like, I always use food because it seems to be that there is food items that go across, everything from I hate it and I won't touch it to I love it, I'll eat it all the time.
Yeah.
There's I like it sometimes. I like it when it's cooked a certain way.
Yeah.
It's okay, but I won't choose it. But if I'm starving, I will eat it. There's here and there foods. There's foods that I don't really like it, but if I'm starving, I'll eat it. And then there's the foods that no, I won't touch it no matter what. and and I actually have them choose it, and we do this whole choice thing. It's called a paired choice reinforcer, and we use it to rank reinforcement. But I actually make the kids go through. I choose things across the whole spectrum, and then I have the kid do like, would you like this or this? Would you like this or this? So they can see the logic in it, and then
Yes.
I'll rank it, and then I'll start to draw. You love this, you like this, you think this is okay, you don't really like this, but you'll eat it sometimes, and you really hate this. They get so angry with me. If
Yeah.
I want a tantrum from a teenager that hasn't had a tantrum in 10 years, that's the place, because they'll be yelling at me saying, no, 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 I really love this. It's not just okay.
Right.
And it's just like, because you're trying to break down that black and white. You're trying to get them to see the
Yeah.
continuum. And if all of their definitions of the middle are all one extreme or the other, life
Yeah.
is super hard.
Yeah.
And so there a lot of times for these kids, even when they talk a lot, their definitions of words are wrong. The logic they have in terms of why things are done are not right. And that's why, like, I'm always encouraging behavior analysts with these kinds of kids, don't start teaching right away. You have to figure out what rules in their head that's wrong. So you
Yeah.
have to take baselines of what they think, why something happens.
Yeah.
And I get, sometimes the kids will come up to me and say, like, he hates me because of, um, he like turned his head and sneezed and like ran into the bathroom. And it's like, well, no, something probably happened, right?
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
but they're not reading all those social cues. They just know he hates me now.
Wow.
Or, I have a kid who actually has something else. I can't even remember combination of what he has. And his mom's been telling me that he gets bullied. So his mom's picking my brain, right? How to deal with bullies. And for years. And I was visiting them on the East Coast, and we went to go pick him up. And then when we drove up, mom says, oh no, that kid's with him. And I looked at the kid and was like, he's on the spectrum. So it was a kid that this other kid was saying it was a bully. And I was like, and he got in the car and I said, hey, does he have autism? And he's like, yes. I said, okay, we're redoing your whole bullying thing. It's not bullying.
Yeah.
He only understands X, Y, and Z. And that's why he's treating you this way.
Yeah.
And it can go both ways, for so many things, but there's a lot of information that's missing. So you need to go in and figure out what the holes are and start to teach her how to read, how to redefine things. Rules that she thought were from one reason aren't, they're wrong rules.
Yeah.
And so you have to redefine it. Um, you can explain a lot to her, and it is exhausting.
Yeah.
It,
That's what
this,
mom has
the,
written in, that it's
yeah,
exhausting.
and these families, because I have a friend's kid who's at this level, and he's stayed over at my house, and it is exhausting, even if I know what to do,
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
and, but it is just taking the time and figuring out what's the priority in the moment and not trying to let it overwhelm you as a parent.
Yeah.
You figure out what's going to keep her safe first and working at that level and trying to keep it at a small level so you can, as you reach each goal, and actually really giving her a lot of reinforcement as she reaches each goal too. And
Okay.
not taking for granted what reinforcement is. Kids at this level, actually, their reinforcers change quite a bit.
Minute by
And
minute, I would imagine.
and you have to actually activate whatever is reinforcing at the moment, because they are bright enough to be searching and looking and interested
Yeah.
enough out there that it doesn't stay the same. But this is where you get a good DBT and ABA, and if you can get DBT and ABA to work together in
Yeah.
communication, you can get a really good program going.
I find it really, we're out of time, but I find it really interesting the comment that mom made about it seems like, she wants to be miserable. And I was listening to what you were saying, and we all know somebody who, picks being with relationships with people where it's not good for them, right? We've all seen people who go through that. But I was also thinking about, the friends that we have that, for instance, I think we all have one friend that they write every little thing that happens to them in the day on their Facebook post as if it is the highest drama in the world. And they're always having things going on. And it's because that's how they get their attention. I'm wondering if the part of the being miserable is part of it is what I'm used to and I don't know any other thing, but also, I want to know what the C is on here. Is that what does that mean for her when she's miserable? Does that mean that people gather around her and she gets more attention, or does it mean that she gets time to be by herself, which is what she really like? I'm curious as to what's the paycheck that's comfortable for being miserable. What is she getting from it?
Mm-hmm.
Which is an interesting thing. But parent said, excellent, thank you. I will do my research and help her. Um, she has even said that the work makes no sense to me. I hate that people assume it does because I can speak doesn't mean I really understand. Oh,
Yep.
yes, heart wrenching.
It's words. We assume so much.
Yeah,
And even for our behavior analysts, when they come in, I said, you need to check language. And they're like, oh, they talk a lot. I'm like, that doesn't mean anything,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. What a gift you are to our community, Evelyn Kong. I'm so glad that you were here today and that we were able to have the conversation with the people that we did. We are out of time. I want to tell people that we're back tomorrow live with Bonnie Yates. We're talking about special education. If you have a question, a lot of you went back to school this week or going or back next week. If you have a question or you didn't get your comp ed figured out, please write that to me right now at s.penrod@autism-live.com, because I've got room for a couple of questions for her, but I need them like within the hour. s.penrod@autism-live.com. Traven, if you have a second and can put that in the comments, that would be brilliant. But Evelyn Kong, you are amazing. And like I said, a gift to our community. Thank you so much for all the work that you continue to do and have done for so many years. We just appreciate you. I hope you feel that in your bones.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You guys, I will see you tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.